The night the desert burned, and the illusion of invincibility died forever. On this International Labor Day, May 1st, while the world marked the strength of working people, the skies over the Middle East turned into an apocalyptic inferno. The Islamic Republic of Iran unleashed 6,100 Kheibar missiles in the largest coordinated missile assault in human history, hammering straight into the armored core of Israel's elite 162nd Division. 6,100 screaming warheads, Mach 5 fury, swarm tactics designed to overwhelm and destroy. In under 50 minutes, the unthinkable unfolded. The legendary 162nd Armored Division Hub, Israel's strategic fortress of main battle tanks, armored vehicles, and command infrastructure, was obliterated in a cataclysm of fire. The scale of destruction is staggering. Over 680 main battle tanks and armored vehicles turned into burning scrap metal, entire logistics hubs and ammunition depots vaporized, critical supply chains for fuel, spare parts, and munitions wiped out in seconds. Damage estimates have already skyrocketed to $748.4 billion, but the human cost is even more devastating. Reports confirm hundreds of Israeli personnel killed and over 1,000 wounded in the initial barrage alone, with many more still missing under the rubble of collapsed bunkers and command posts. Now, Tel Aviv is descending into pure panic. Sirens wail endlessly through the night. Civilians flee in chaos. Hospitals overflow. The once unshakable confidence of the Israeli military machine lies in smoking ruins. This was no random attack. This was a masterpiece of precision and defiance, forged under decades of sanctions. Iran's indigenous Kheibar missiles, with their advanced swarm intelligence and terminal guidance, exposed the fatal weaknesses in the world's most expensive air defense systems. Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow, three were saturated and shattered, proving that money and technology cannot defeat raw ingenuity and unbreakable will. The air reeks of burning metal and desperation. Reservists are being pulled from their homes in the darkness. Stock markets plunge. World leaders scramble. For the first time in decades, the myth of Western-backed military supremacy is crumbling before our eyes. This single night has changed everything. It is a seismic shift in the global balance of power, a moment when a sanctioned nation stood tall and delivered a blow that echoes across continents. If you seek the unfiltered truth behind this historic strike, the full military breakdown, the revolutionary weapons behind the victory, America's terrifying limitations, and the new multipolar world being born in these flames, stay with me until the end. Like this video right now if you believe history just turned a corner. Subscribe and turn on notifications. In times of war and deception, the truth has never been more urgent. Tonight we expose it all. How did Iran's unstoppable missile storm shatter the myth of invincibility? Why is Washington already paralyzed in its response? And as Tel Aviv burns on this May 1st, is this the beginning of the end of unipolar dominance? This is the night the balance of power shattered. Let us now move from shock to clarity. What exactly happened on the night of May 1st? How did a single Iranian operation deliver what many are calling the most devastating blow to Israeli military power in modern history? At precisely 2:17 local time, Iran initiated Operation Kheibar 2. Over the next 47 minutes, Iranian forces launched 6,100 Kheibar missiles in three massive overlapping waves. This was not a scattered retaliation. This was a meticulously planned, saturation-style strategic strike designed to overwhelm and paralyze Israel's most critical armored formation, the 162nd Division. The 162nd Division, known as the Steel Fist of the Israel Defense Forces, was no ordinary target. Stationed near Ramat David, it served as the central hub for Israel's rapid armored deployment in the north. It housed more than 720 main battle tanks, primarily advanced Merkava Mark, 4 models, over 450 armored personnel carriers, hundreds of self-propelled artillery systems, and critical logistics nodes containing fuel reserves, spare parts, warehouses, and forward ammunition depots. In short, it was the beating heart of Israel's ground offensive capability. Wave 1, approximately 2,200 missiles, focused on air defense suppression. These missiles deliberately targeted radar installations, Patriot and Arrow batteries, and communication nodes surrounding the 162nd Division. Israeli defenses responded with everything they had: Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow, 3 systems fired at maximum capacity. Yet the sheer volume created an insurmountable saturation effect. Israeli interceptors managed to down only an estimated 28 to 32% of incoming threats. The rest either penetrated or forced the systems into total overload. Wave 2 and 3, totaling over 3,900 missiles, struck the heart of the base itself. Precision-guided Kheibar variants, equipped with terminal radar seekers and maneuverable warheads, rained down on hardened shelters, vehicle parks, and underground command bunkers. The results were catastrophic. According to preliminary assessments, more than 680 main battle tanks and armored vehicles were completely destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Entire tank battalions were wiped out while still in their staging areas. Logistics infrastructure suffered even worse. 4 major fuel depots exploded in chain reactions, destroying an estimated 2.8 million liters of aviation and diesel fuel. Ammunition storage facilities, containing tens of thousands of artillery shells, missiles, and small arms rounds, detonated in secondary explosions that lit up the night sky for miles. Critical supply chains for spare parts, maintenance equipment, and medical stockpiles were obliterated. The human toll is heartbreakingly high. Israeli military sources have been forced to acknowledge over 420 confirmed fatalities within the first hours, with the death toll expected to climb significantly higher as rescue teams dig through collapsed bunkers and burning wreckage. More than 1,450 personnel are reported wounded, many with severe burns and shrapnel injuries. Dozens of senior officers, including brigade-level commanders, are among the casualties. This represents one of the highest single-night losses in the history of the Israel Defense Forces. Tactically, Iran employed several groundbreaking innovations. First, they used waves of low-cost decoy drones to exhaust Israeli air defenses before the main missile barrage arrived. Second, the Kheibar missiles flew on depressed trajectories at extremely high speeds, making early detection and interception extremely difficult. Third, the attack incorporated electronic warfare jamming that disrupted Israeli command and control networks at the critical moment. The combination turned Israel's technological advantage into a liability. The more expensive and complex the defense system, the more vulnerable it became to saturation and clever tactics. By 3/4 local time, the 162nd Division had effectively ceased to exist as a functional combat formation. Its ability to conduct rapid armored maneuvers, the cornerstone of Israeli ground doctrine, has been set back by years, perhaps even a decade. Repairing and replacing the lost equipment alone will cost hundreds of billions of dollars and require massive resupply efforts from the United States and Europe at a time when both are already stretched thin. This was not merely an attack on one military base, it was a strategic decapitation strike against Israel's conventional superiority in the northern sector. The psychological impact is equally profound. For the first time, the Israeli public witnessed its most elite armored forces being dismantled in real time. The aura of invincibility that has protected Israel for decades is gone. As smoke still rises from the ruins near Ramat David, the world is left with one undeniable conclusion. Iran has demonstrated that a determined, self-reliant military power can deliver a knockout blow against a heavily armed, technologically advanced adversary, even one backed by the full intelligence and financial resources of the United States. The question now is not whether Israel can recover. Of course, it will try. The real question is how long that recovery will take, at what cost, and whether the strategic balance in the region has been permanently altered on this fateful night of May 1st. This was the night conventional military wisdom was rewritten in fire and steel. Now we turn from the battlefield to the technology that made this historic strike possible. What exactly are the Kheibar missiles? How did a nation, under decades of sanctions, develop weapons capable of humiliating the world's most advanced defense systems? And what does this reveal about the shifting balance of military power? At the center of Operation Kheibar, two stands: the Kheibar missile family, Iran's latest generation of medium to long-range ballistic and cruise missiles. Developed indigenously by the Aerospace Industries Organization of Iran, the Kheibar represents the pinnacle of Iran's self-reliance doctrine. Every component, from the solid fuel rocket motors to the advanced guidance systems, was designed and manufactured inside Iran, often under the harshest international sanctions. The missile launched on May 1st belongs to an upgraded variant with a range of 1,450 to 2,000 kilometers, a payload capacity of 500 to 700 kilograms, and a terminal speed exceeding Mach 5. Unlike older generations, these missiles incorporate composite materials that reduce radar cross-section and allow for depressed flight trajectories, making them extremely difficult for early warning radars to detect until the final seconds. What makes the Kheibar truly revolutionary is its guidance package. It combines inertial navigation, GPS-assisted mid-course correction, and a sophisticated terminal radar seeker with anti-jamming capabilities. This allows the missile to maneuver in the final phase of flight, dodging interceptors and striking moving or hardened targets with devastating accuracy. During the May 1st operation, this terminal guidance enabled direct hits on underground bunkers and dispersed tank formations with precision that shocked Western analysts. Iran fired 6,100 missiles in just 47 minutes, an astonishing launch rate that overwhelmed Israel's defensive architecture. For comparison, during previous conflicts, Iran had never exceeded a few hundred missiles in a single wave. The leap to over 6,000 demonstrates not only production capacity, but also the ability to stockpile and rapidly deploy thousands of advanced weapons. Estimates suggest Iran maintains an inventory of over 15,000 ballistic and cruise missiles of various ranges, the largest such arsenal in the Middle East. Now, let us compare. A single Israeli Arrow 3 interceptor missile costs approximately $8 to $12 million. A Patriot Pack 3 missile exceeds $4 million. In contrast, each Kheibar missile is estimated to cost between $50,000 and $120,000. This creates an unsustainable cost-exchange ratio. On May 1st, Israel and its allies may have expended over $2.8 billion worth of interceptor missiles in a single night, only to achieve a 28 to 32% success rate. Iran achieved strategic victory at a fraction of the financial cost. Beyond raw numbers, Iranian engineering has closed the technological gap with remarkable speed. The Kheibar's solid-fuel propulsion allows for rapid launch from mobile transporter-erector launchers, many of which are disguised as civilian trucks. This mobility, combined with decoy drones and electronic warfare support, created a multi-domain attack that traditional air defense doctrines were never designed to counter. Iran's self-reliance extends far beyond the Kheibar itself. The entire program, from warhead design to composite rocket casings and miniature inertial measurement units, was developed domestically. Iranian engineers mastered solid fuel technology that allows missiles to remain fueled and ready for years, unlike liquid-fueled systems that require lengthy preparation. This launch-on-demand capability proved decisive on May 1st. Western analysts have long underestimated Iran's military-industrial complex. Despite sanctions intended to cripple its technological progress, Iran has become one of the few nations capable of designing and mass-producing precision-guided ballistic missiles with ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers. This achievement rivals the early ballistic missile programs of major powers, accomplished under far more restrictive conditions. The implications extend beyond this single operation. Iran has demonstrated that a determined nation-state can develop advanced asymmetric weapons that neutralize expensive, high-tech defenses. The swarm tactics employed, mixing real missiles with decoys, using electronic jamming, and coordinating multiple launch sites simultaneously, represent a new paradigm in modern warfare. Even the United States, with its vast technological superiority, would struggle to defend against such a saturation attack without enormous cost. Perhaps most importantly, this success validates Iran's strategic philosophy: invest in quantity, mobility, precision, and indigenous production rather than chasing ever more expensive platforms. While the United States and Israel pour billions into exquisite systems like the F-35 and layered missile shields, Iran has chosen the path of the poor man's smart weapon, and on May 1st, that path proved devastatingly effective. The Kheibar missile is more than hardware. It is a symbol of technological sovereignty. In an era where great powers attempt to control the world through sanctions and technology denial, Iran has shown that creativity and determination can overcome material limitations. A nation that once relied on foreign weapons now produces some of the most effective strike systems on the planet. As smoke continues to rise from the ruins of the 162nd Division, the world must confront an uncomfortable truth. The age of unchallenged technological dominance by a few nations is ending. Self-reliant military innovation, once dismissed as impossible under sanctions, has rewritten the battlefield in a single night. The Kheibar did not merely destroy tanks and bunkers, it destroyed the myth that money and Western technology guarantee victory. On May 1st, a new chapter in military history was written, not with borrowed power, but with homegrown ingenuity and unbreakable resolve. This is the true significance of Iran's weapon technology, and this is why the events of that night will be studied by military academies around the world for decades to come. As the fire still raged at the ruins of Israel's 162nd Division, the world turned its eyes to Washington. How would the self-proclaimed global superpower respond to one of the most humiliating military setbacks for its closest ally in decades? The initial American reaction was swift but revealing. Within hours of the Iranian barrage, the Pentagon announced the immediate deployment of two additional carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Theodore Roosevelt, toward the eastern Mediterranean. American combat aircraft were placed on heightened alert across bases in the region. Secretary of Defense issued a strongly worded statement declaring unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself. Yet behind the firm rhetoric lies a far more cautious reality. Despite the dramatic movement of naval assets, U.S. forces have maintained a deliberate distance. Neither carrier group has entered waters where it could be vulnerable to Iranian anti-ship missiles or swarm attacks. American officials have quietly advised Israel against immediate large-scale retaliation, fearing an uncontrollable escalation that could draw U.S. troops directly into a devastating regional war. This hesitation speaks volumes. The United States, with a defense budget exceeding $900 billion annually and the world's most advanced military technology, finds itself strangely constrained. Why? Because the May 1st strike exposed the uncomfortable limits of American power in the 21st century. First, the financial cost. Replenishing Israel's depleted interceptor missile stocks, replacing destroyed tanks and equipment, and providing emergency aid could easily exceed $50 to $80 billion in the coming months. At a time when American debt stands at over $36 trillion and domestic political divisions run deep, sustaining another expensive Middle East conflict is politically and economically toxic. Second, military overstretch. U.S. forces are already committed in Europe, supporting Ukraine, maintaining presence in the Indo-Pacific to counter China, and managing global operations. Opening a major new front against Iran, a country of 90 million people with hardened underground facilities, advanced missiles, and powerful regional allies, risks exhausting American resources and readiness. Third, the strategic dilemma. Direct U.S. intervention would almost certainly trigger a wider war, potentially closing the Strait of Hormuz and sending global oil prices skyrocketing above $200 per barrel. Such an economic shock would devastate the already fragile American and European economies. Washington understands this, hence the careful, measured response. Politically, the Biden administration, or whoever occupies the White House, faces intense pressure from pro-Israel lobbies demanding stronger action, while large segments of the American public and Congress are increasingly war-weary. Public opinion polls already show declining support for unconditional backing of Israel in prolonged conflicts. On the diplomatic front, the United States has scrambled to rally European allies and Arab states. Yet the response has been lukewarm. Several European capitals have called for restraint and de-escalation, while key Arab nations have remained conspicuously silent or issued only mild condemnations of Iran. The once solid coalition Washington relied upon is showing visible cracks. This episode reveals a deeper geopolitical truth. American unipolar dominance is eroding. The era when Washington could dictate outcomes in the Middle East through military might alone is fading. Iran has demonstrated that regional powers with determination and asymmetric capabilities can impose significant costs, even on the world's leading superpower and its allies. The movement of aircraft carriers, once a symbol of overwhelming American strength, now feels more like a defensive gesture than a decisive show of force. The carriers are powerful, but they are also vulnerable in an age of precision missiles and drone swarms. Their cautious positioning reflects the new reality. Even the U.S. Navy must calculate risks carefully. As smoke continues to rise from the 162nd Division, Washington confronts a painful strategic crossroads. Full-scale war with Iran carries catastrophic risks. Doing nothing damages credibility. The middle path of limited support and containment satisfies no one and may only prolong the conflict. The events of May 1st have accelerated a process that has been underway for years. The gradual transition from a U.S.-dominated unipolar world toward a multipolar reality where regional powers like Iran can successfully challenge American hegemony and its proxies. America's response so far has been measured, cautious, and constrained. In that restraint lies an admission, however unspoken, that the rules of the game have changed. The superpower that once reshaped the Middle East at will now finds itself reacting rather than dictating. This is the new geopolitical landscape emerging from the fires of May 1st, and it is a landscape in which American power, while still formidable, is no longer unlimited. The world is watching, history is shifting, and Washington is struggling to keep pace. Beyond missiles, radars, and numbers lies a force far more powerful, the human will. On the night of May 1st, what truly defeated the 162nd Division was not only technology, but an unbreakable spirit forged through decades of resistance. Iran, a nation that has endured sanctions, assassinations, cyber attacks, and constant military threats for over 40 years, fought with the determination of a people defending their dignity and sovereignty. This is the spirit of a nation that refuses to bow. While Israel relies on the world's most advanced imported weaponry and unconditional American backing, Iranian soldiers, engineers, and missile crews operate with something deeper, the conviction that they are defending their homeland against existential threats. This is not abstract rhetoric. It is the lived reality of a population that has internalized the slogan, "We can and we will," through years of hardship. Compare the two sides. On one side stands a military powered by borrowed strength, American funding, American intelligence, American diplomatic cover, and American weapons systems. When that external support hesitates or proves insufficient, doubt creeps in. On the other side stands a force driven by internal conviction. Iranian forces do not fight for distant patrons or geopolitical chess games. They fight for their families, their culture, their independence, and their right to exist without foreign domination. This difference in morale manifested dramatically on May 1st. Iranian operators launched over 6,100 missiles with calm precision, knowing the risks but driven by national purpose. In contrast, Israeli forces, watching their supposedly invincible defenses collapse, experienced not only material loss, but a profound psychological shock. The myth of superiority, carefully cultivated for generations, shattered in real time. History has repeatedly shown that technology alone rarely decides wars. The human factor, courage, resilience, and belief in one's cause often proves decisive. Vietnam, Afghanistan, and countless other conflicts taught the world that no amount of expensive equipment can overcome a determined people fighting on their own soil for their own survival. Iran's achievement on May 1st was not merely military, it was spiritual. It proved that a sanctioned, isolated nation could develop world-class capabilities through ingenuity and sacrifice. Every Kheibar missile that struck its target carried not just explosives, but the collective will of a proud civilization that refuses to submit. This is why the 162nd Division fell so decisively. It was not facing just weapons. It was facing an idea that sovereignty and dignity are worth any price. That spirit cannot be intercepted by missiles. It cannot be sanctioned away. It cannot be bombed into submission. As Tel Aviv panics and Washington calculates its limited options, one truth stands clear. In the 21st century, nations with strong internal will and self-reliant capabilities will increasingly challenge those who depend on borrowed power and fragile alliances. The events of May 1st were not only a military victory, they were a triumph of the human spirit over material arrogance. And that is the deepest reason why the balance of power shifted so dramatically on that fateful night. The smoke rising from the ruins of Israel's 162nd Division is not merely the aftermath of a military strike. It is the visible symbol of a crumbling old world order. On May 1st, the international system shifted. What we witnessed was the acceleration of multipolarity, a world no longer dominated by a single superpower and its allies, but shaped by multiple centers of power willing to challenge the status quo. The consequences are already rippling across the globe. Russia immediately described the Iranian operation as a legitimate act of self-defense while deepening military technical cooperation with Tehran. China, maintaining strategic ambiguity in public statements, has quietly increased oil purchases from Iran and strengthened economic ties. North Korea has openly praised the strike as a victory of sovereign will. Together with Iran, these nations form an emerging axis of coordination that increasingly counters Western dominance. NATO's response has been fragmented and hesitant. While Washington pushes for stronger measures, several European members have urged restraint, fearful of energy crises and economic fallout. The once united Western alliance is showing clear signs of strain. The idea that NATO can project power indefinitely into distant regions without consequences is being seriously questioned. On the other side, the United States finds itself trapped in a painful dilemma with Israel. Unconditional support now carries enormous strategic costs, higher oil prices, potential regional war, and domestic political backlash. The illusion of effortless hegemony is collapsing. America can still project power, but it can no longer do so cheaply or without risking major blowback. This single night has accelerated a process that began years ago: the decline of unipolar dominance. For decades, the United States and Israel operated under the assumption that military superiority and technological edge guaranteed control. May 1st shattered that assumption. A sanctioned nation using indigenous weapons proved that determination and clever strategy can neutralize expensive defense systems and shift regional power balances. The world is watching closely. Countries in the global south see Iran's success as proof that resistance is possible. Nations tired of Western sanctions and interventions now have a powerful example of what self-reliance can achieve. The era of unchallenged American-led interventions is drawing to a close. We are entering a new multipolar reality, messier, more competitive, but also more balanced. No single power can dictate terms anymore. Alliances are becoming fluid, and sovereignty is regaining its true meaning. The events of May 1st did not just damage an armored division. They damaged the entire architecture of Western hegemony. The world order that emerged after the Cold War is now visibly cracking, and a new, more diverse international system is rising in its place. History will mark this date not simply as a military clash, but as the night the unipolar dream began to die, and the multipolar world was born in fire. This is the true global picture emerging from the ashes of the 162nd Division. The fires continue to burn over the ruins of the 162nd Division. The world has changed in a single night, and the echoes of those 6,100 Kheibar missiles will be felt for years to come. What we witnessed on May 1st was more than a military strike. It was a historic turning point, the moment when self-reliance, national will, and technological ingenuity defeated the myth of invincible Western-backed power. The old order is cracking. A new multipolar world is rising from the smoke. Now, the real question belongs to all of us. Where does this lead? Will the United States and Israel choose escalation and risk a wider war that could engulf the entire region and beyond? Or will they finally accept the new realities of the 21st century? How many more illusions of hegemony must collapse before the powerful understand that the age of unchallenged dominance is over? I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Do you believe this marks the beginning of the end of American unipolar power? How should the world respond to this new balance of forces? And most importantly, what will happen next? If this video helped you see beyond mainstream headlines and understand the deeper forces shaping our world, please support the channel. Hit the like button, share this video with friends who need to see the truth, and subscribe with notifications turned on. Independent analysis like this exists only because of your support. In times of war, propaganda, and confusion, voices that speak honestly matter more than ever. Thank you for watching Lawrence Wilkerson Daily. We will continue to bring you unfiltered, in-depth analysis of the events that truly shape our future. Stay informed, Stay independent. This is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning. See you in the next video.